Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode 18, First Time Caller. I'm Sara.
I'm Tessa, and this is Checked Out with Green Hills Public Library.
Today, we have a lot of firsts going on the podcast. We are welcoming our guest who's here for the first time, Olivia. Olivia is our Adult Services Programming Librarian, and we are stoked to have her. We are going to be discussing debut authors, very popular debut releases from authors that might have a sophomore novel or multiple novels out since their excellent debut release, and the evolution of these authors' writing journey and their novels to come that we're excited for. So without further ado, hey, Olivia.
Hey, thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
We are very excited to have you today.
So to start us off, do you want to give us a little introduction about you, your job, what you do here at the library?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Olivia. I am the Adult Programming Librarian here at Green Hills. So I am responsible for all of the programs that we do for adults, patrons 18 and up. I book, run, and help advertise all of our programs. We do a lot of hired programs, things like history lectures, craft programs. I teach some technology classes, and yeah, it's a really fun job. Great way to interact with the community. I try to incorporate things that are like people in the adult services department do, as well as their skills, which is a lot of fun. Our community is very interested in art and crafting specifically, which is awesome because I love a craft.
Do you have a favorite part of your job?
That's a good question. I feel lucky because my job is kind of unusual in a library. I interact with patrons in a very specific way, but I think especially right now, I just love to be able to cultivate and provide a space for community and for people to learn new skills that they might not be able to learn or access otherwise, whether that be like money be a barrier or I try to provide like a welcoming environment for people to learn things in a very low stakes, non-judgmental space. And it's really rewarding to see people be able to learn a new skill and meet people in our community that they hadn't known before and then develop a relationship with. So that's definitely one of the best parts of my job.
Might I just say you do a great job at it. Your programs are always super engaging, exactly what our patrons want. You get such great feedback. I've gone to several and you kill it.
Thank you. That's really sweet. I always think about the time that you came to the puzzle competition. That was really fun.
Yeah, it was me, my wife, my mother-in-law, and my mom. And we slayed.
And you slayed.
I would like to echo Tessa. I don't get to see you in action a lot, Olivia, but the moments that I do are excellent. I think that you bring in fantastic speakers. I think you have great rapport with our patrons, and it's so inspiring to see you make those connections and do your job so well. And it's refreshing to see someone that enjoys their job and what they do. So thanks for being a part of our library. It's fantastic to work with you.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. It helps to have like amazing people to work with and support me. So
shifting gears a little from what you do here at the library to kind of what you enjoy reading in your free time.
Yeah, I don't get to talk about books like a ton in my job. I host our book club, Factor Fiction Monthly, so I'm very excited to talk to you guys about this. I thought I was a big reader, and I am, but not as much as you guys. My whole life I've always loved historical fiction. Historical lectures are some of my favorite programs I get to do because I do love history. I love specifically like English history and reading about like women or queer history. But when I started at Green Hills, I've been trying to branch out and challenge myself to read other genres so that I can keep our patrons informed too with recommendations. Specifically lately, a lot of like books about influencers or like social media. I think we've grown up in a time with social media having a very like dominant but changing presence in our lives and culture and society. So I love to see authors kind of respond to that and how capitalism and image plays a role and how people see themselves personally and like what it means to be a professional like influencer or have a job on social media. So some really interesting books, I think, related to that.
I'll definitely have to get some recs from you after this because that's such a fascinating topic and one that I am pretty interested in myself. So we'll have to link up.
Yeah,
for sure.
the chat.
And with a topic like that, we see it so frequently be like across genres. Like you have just general literary fiction, horror. It's big in horror. I feel
Yeah.
there's like been a surge of that because Play Nice she is.
Yeah.
hmm
Trad Wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one.
Oh, is she? I didn't know that. I haven't started yet. Spoiler alert. We're reading that for our book talk for next episode. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I didn't know she was. I think that adds like an extra layer to it.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Girl Dinner.
Yeah, which I think there is kind of this dark underside to social media fame, especially when it's young people or even children. So I love to see people respond to that with like more horror and acknowledging like the ways that it impacts people like negatively.
I'm an iPad baby at my core. So the family or like mommy influencers, it really freaks me out. I don't enjoy it. This is me just like fully knowing your business on Goodreads. You read Sherry Frankie's memoir, right?
I did, yes. I was gonna say too, yeah, a lot of memoirs of child stars or people who have grown up in the public eye, which I think we've always been fascinated with. People like Princess Diana, like very public figures who are almost like maligned because of the negative impacts of fame on their mental health. But I loved her memoir. I thought it was a really great outing for like a first book. Something that was really traumatic that she handled, I think, very deeply, and you can kind of tell like she was processing in real time, I think, with her writing, which was kind of powerful to see as like a reader. So I'm interested to see more of what she has to say later on.
A similar thread, Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died. That was like her debut into the writing world, where she also discusses growing up in the public eye, being a part of Nickelodeon, being on multiple shows, and the impact that had on her self-esteem and the relationship that she had with her mom and how that was kind of tarnished a little because of that fame. That was a really interesting read too, to kind of get that perspective.
It's like their chance to kind of reclaim that attention and like figure out how to tell their own story on their own terms. And now Jeanette McCurdy has a platform for her like fictional writing. So very curious to see. I haven't read her new book, but been hearing a lot of things about it.
Also, spoiler alert, that's our book talk book for this one, which I guess is not a spoiler because if you'd listened to last episode, you would know that. But we'll go back to her.
So stay tuned, everyone. For
You should read it. I think you would really like it.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. Some of the like age gap, I wouldn't even say age gap, like teacher student kind of gives me the ick, but
Yeah.
I know it's like supposed to.
Yeah, for sure.
I think she does a really good job at creating that, establishing that kind of that this is an icky situation.
Yeah. Even the cover art is very like jarring and does a good job of making you like uncomfortable, I think.
Yes, for sure. Wow, it seems like we naturally shifted to discussing debuts with Jeanette and her debut from her memoir to the fiction world. So I want to ask you, Olivia, why debuts? What is so interesting about a debut novel?
You know, I was making my list of recommendations for this episode and just naturally realized like, oh, a lot of the things I read are debuts. It's not necessarily intentional. I just think I'm really drawn to kind of unusual or unique concepts and voices. I think that's not to say established authors don't have that, but I think with debut, when people are trying to figure out their like perspective, point of view, and voice, they just are willing to kind of engage more with like fringe topics or like push the boundaries a little bit. And I find that very interesting, and also trying to make a space for themselves to say something that they felt needs to or hasn't been said, which I guess a lot of these are about like social media or like influencer culture. But a lot of things in history too that haven't been talked about. And I just love to see like people trying to claim their stake, I guess, in like the publishing world.
I fully agree with you. A debut author is so much more likely to have like really weird and outlandish ideas because, first of all, they want to come out of the gate strong. They want you to remember it, but also you have no expectation of them. Whereas like Stephen King, there's years and decades of expectation on his new releases. With James Patterson, you know exactly what you're going to get. And when you get that far down the line, but for your debut, you want to stand out. You want to really push that boundary. At least I would. And so you end up with, like you said, a lot of like fringe topics, weird ideas, like half magical realism stuff. I feel like that's been very popular with debut authors recently.
Yeah, agree. I think too, people like willing to experiment with form, and as librarians, when we're doing purchasing, it's just kind of astounding how many books like come out. And I always wonder, like, how do you stand out? Like, how do you get people to be interested in your writing or your book? And so we do see just like really cool, interesting things.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, that I think that the field that we're in, it pushes a lot of those debuts to us because we're looking at the new releases or we're attending these webinars where publishers are trying to highlight these debut authors and get them more publicity and more traction so that they can become staples for our patrons and we can continue to purchase them. So I think that for me, at least, that's where a lot of the debuts that I've gotten have stemmed from, giving me that really interesting idea that they're writing about that I haven't encountered before, and they're doing it in a new and fresh way. So maybe this is for me. So it opens up the door a little bit to kind of a new world, a new author and the world that they're creating and their writing style that I think is always really fun to be a part of. And one of the joys of a debut, because it's kind of like one of those little surprise boxes that you get, those little like knickknacks where you don't know what you're going to get. And then you're like, oh, wow, this is now one of my favorite authors, which is like a few of the authors that I have on here are like, I will like continuously read what they put out now after their debut.
Yeah, true. I feel like there's nothing like discovering a new author or person that you really resonate with and love, and knowing like, oh, it's their first book. Like I have so much more to wait for, hopefully. Our debut novels, the blind box of books.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was searching for. Blind box. Yes. I think they are the blind box of books.
I agree. You never really know.
So Olivia, do you have a title on the list that you've brought today that is a debut author that you will read their next book or you have read what they're putting out next?
Yeah, I have quite a few actually. And some of them, they do have, other books. Example, Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. Her first book, that was like one of my favorite books of the past 5 years. I didn't read it when it came out, and I have read her second book at this point, which I love, but I actually like her first book better, which it's almost like with directors too, when you see their first movie and you can kind of see their style evolve over time, but they do have a really strong outing and they have a fresh like perspective and idea. So definitely her book. I would recommend both of her books, but Such a Fun Age like really stood out to me.
I think you made a good point that my mind like snagged on a bit in what you were saying is that they like can get better with time, like a director's like their film, like they'll find their footing and get a little bit better. And I think that that's always so fun. And like it's fun to track that evolution too, which is why like it is always worth it to try their sophomore novel and see how that's different from their original, because sometimes they'll publish with a different publisher or they'll get a different editor or they'll, just find their footing in writing. And other times they found their footing right out the gate and you're like, wait, this is like just getting better. Like it can only go up, I think, and I hope.
Well, unless you're James Patterson.
You can, yeah. Yeah, there are some that it's like, unfortunately, like in a series, I guess, the second book, Curse.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I love a second book. I don't care. I know. Second book slump, blah, blah, blah. Second book syndrome. Not me. I love them.
Yeah, does it have to be a second book slump?
It can be a second book slay.
Yeah.
I think
I'll
that
give
my author that is on my list that I read their first novella, ? And we've been,
I know.
we are hand in hand, me and them these days. And that is Eric LaRocca. Their debut is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. It's very much horror. I would like to really emphasize that. And all of their works are. While Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke is always going to be my favorite by them, I do think that they have really, really like hit their stride in their writing with their two most recent publications. But Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke is just really, I don't know how to explain it. You either really vibe with it or you really don't. And you're either going to commit to continue reading them or you're like, never mind, I'm done.
I am on the train and I do read them. Yeah, but I mean, I think I'm a good example of like I have one foot in, one foot out, maybe.
What's your hesitation?
Sometimes, at least with their latest full-length novel that I've read, I have some thoughts, but I don't want to give too much away because it'll come up in a later episode. Easter eggs.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think, are we pushing the envelope because like that's just the natural progression? Or are we pushing the envelope knowing we're pushing the envelope and like actively like chasing that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think like thinking about debut authors, I think a lot about like an author's brand or like an established voice versus like having room for artistic experimentation as well. Like I love people who just write really weird things and it's for them. They don't really care if people necessarily respond to it or it has like commercial popularity, because it is like art for art's sake, or like using novels as a way to convey like things that are experimental or like controversial, versus someone who's like a huge commercial brand or name. You kind of know what you're going to get with them, but maybe they're not necessarily like interested, or it's not their goal to like push certain ideas or be experimental.
I will say, in the case of Eric LaRocca, I think, like we said, we'll go deeper into that in a future episode. I think it's both of your options intertwined. Like, I think they are chasing something, but I think that they're chasing it for a reason.
Yeah, I'd love to explore that more. Well, you guys both gave one author that you're like ride or die for after their debut. I'm giving two. Okay, so yeah. And I've mentioned both of these authors on here before. They released their debuts in 2025 and they came in like very close top 5 reads for me. Both were 5 stars.
Can I guess?
Yeah, you can guess.
One is Joss Richards.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Katie Naiman.
Yes.
Oh, you guys know each other.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time in here discussing them. But Katie Naiman, You Between the Lines, this was her debut. She has studied poetry, so she weaved that into her book, her novel. The background that she has in poetry, I think, allowed her to explore emotion and writing these characters in a very interesting way. And that kept me engaged, at least in the romance realm. Joss Richard, this was her debut. She doesn't have a background in writing, and it kind of just stemmed as a passion project, which I think is so beautiful. And it's just such a cute book, and I love it so much. It's different this time, is just a magical fall New York experience, and the main male character is a chef, and so I'm already sold. Swinging back around to that idea of having a background in writing versus not, a lot of debut authors, they're like coming straight from writing as a passion, or this is something that they're doing at their day job, or they're fitting it into, their lives in between things, that I think is really beautiful and really inspiring. And I hope that more and more people do this and feel inspired by these debut authors to take their chance and seek publication or self-publish.
Love that you just said self-publish, because that's where I was going with it. Over 2025, for sure, I really leaned into reading a lot of fantasy romance that is either indie published or self-published, and truly found some of my favorite books of the year through that. I think when someone is self-publishing or indie published, while they might not have that background, the work that it takes to get yourself to be able to do that, it's such a labor of love that you can tell, even if it's not the most lyrical writing you've ever read, even if they're taking inspiration from things you've already seen, it is still their baby, and I feel like you can really tell that in independently published works.
Yeah, agreed. I read a lot of romance that goes from being independently published to being published, like traditionally published, excuse me. And like for ones that I've read both sides of that coin, like authors that have, transitioned from indie to trad pub, there's like even a difference, I think, in their writing, because there's not as much freedom, I think, to explore ideas or to write like endlessly. They're not confined by page number or a structure that, the publisher wants them to keep. They can just kind of go for it. And so you're taking like sometimes these 500-page novels and you're like smashing them down into 350 pages, 400 pages. So you're either losing a lot of like the language, or you're losing a lot of that like character or world building. And they're working with an editor now too. So like that kind of changes their own voice. I mean, more power to them for getting traditionally published. I think that is something to be so proud of. But I think that also there's a lot of merit in self-publishing, and just seeing both sides of that is kind of fun to read and see, oh, this author is a little different now. Sometimes good, sometimes unfortunately not good, but that's not for today.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I agree. I don't read a lot of self-published or indie published, I guess, authors. I do try to add when I'm doing book orders and support independent publishing houses. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, I guess, recommendations from you guys about self-published or indie published things. And too, like you said, if people aren't bound by the constraints of like what's marketable and will be commercially successful, like what would that look like, and how could people's voices change?
Self-published, indie published things, they are doing what they want to, and it's not just like a quick, oh, I know that this publisher will publish this book, let me write it.
They said copy paste that because it sells.
Truly.
I do want to talk about one debut that was initially self-published and then got picked up fairly quickly, and that's Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. It's a like hockey romance. It's a very emotional read for a sports romance, I think. She talks a lot about mental health and covers a lot of, maybe darker or trigger warning worthy topics in the book. And she kind of maintains that theme throughout the rest of her books. So I read her sophomore novel. I appreciated it. I thought it was well done. I enjoyed her debut more. And I can't remember if I read her debut when it was self-published, but I know that it stayed the same because they picked it up like months after it was released.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't ever know that was indie pub.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Really quickly.
That's crazy.
And so, and they then released it really quickly. So I am assuming there's not many changes, but I am looking forward to her third novel now that she has coming out. And like that's another author, debut author that like I've kind of stuck with and enjoy her work. And so I will read her grocery list.
Awesome. I think for me too, going to the American Library Association conference last summer really changed my perspective about indie and self-publishing as well. In the like marketplace they have with all of, they have all the major publishers, but then these small people and presses. And I feel like books I never would have known about or seen otherwise. And I ended up like getting a few for our collection. So it was really cool. Just like you never know like what's out there. And like you said, discovering someone who now you're following very closely, starting with indie origins. I think that's really powerful.
One of mine that I found after it had been picked up for trad publishing was Imani Ariu. She wrote Heavenly Bodies. This was a tragedy for me specifically because I knew it existed. It was on my list to read. Then it got picked up for trad pub, so I couldn't read it anywhere. And I was like, okay, fine. But then I read it trad pub, but the other two were out indie already. Like the whole trilogy had been out independently published. And then obviously that goes out of print when they're re-releasing them. So I could have had the whole story all along, but I didn't. And so now I wait.
Wow.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
It's okay. That book is it takes a lot of fantasy romance tropes that are very common and tweaks them just a little bit. So it's still like your tried and true what you love, but you're still getting something fresh. Like for example, there's still a dark shadow magic brooding character, but it's our female main character, not our male main character. And our male love interest is just like, he is the light magic, which is not something that you really see very often. And it's all, as you might have guessed by the title, it's all like celestial magic based, which is not super uncommon, but it's definitely done in a different way.
On a similar vein to that, sort of, a debut that I read, which maybe everyone will be upset and sue me here a little bit. It's not technically a debut, but it's a debut for this author in adult fiction. And that's I, Medusa by Ayana Gray. This is her first debut in adult fiction. So it takes the story of Medusa and explores the myth, and it incorporates a lot of female rage in it, which I think is the perspective that she takes here. And I thought that was interesting, especially for an adult debut. It did like at times read a little young adult, which is where Gray is coming from originally. So I guess like with time, she'll further find her footing that we were talking about earlier in the adult space. But for a debut in adult, I thought that it was engaging, the story was interesting, the characters were interesting, and I would read something else by her.
I personally find there's been a lot of it within the last like 2 years in publishing of moving around in genre and age range. I find that I much prefer it to go YA to adult versus an adult author moving to YA. I just think that I don't know what gets like lost in the communication there. Just because we're aging down our characters doesn't mean that they should become flat or like, I don't know. I personally think if you're going to do that, just keep writing an adult. There's really no reason, but that has nothing to do with anything.
Olivia, do you have another debut recommendation for us?
Yes. Something I finished recently that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. It's called The Book of Luke by Lovell Holder. He is a like TV and movie producer. And I think that really shows in this book, which is about a like previously famous football player who gets hurt in a car accident, and he goes on a reality TV show that is like very similar. It's like a mix of The Survivor and The Challenge. And I guess behind the scenes knowledge, everyone at Green Hills is like obsessed with reality TV, myself included. So definitely why I was drawn to this book. But it's between two time perspectives. So the first being the early 2000s, which I think is like kind of the golden era and also most controversial era of reality TV. Love that he is exploring that in a book. And then the characters like appearance again on the show in the mid 2000 or 2010s as kind of like a villain character. Just really, really interesting format. I can tell that the author is like a reality TV like super fan. Like this man knows his shows. I thought it was very realistic. The plot twists he puts in are like similar to a TV show where it's like you end on a cliffhanger in the episode. You have to wait till next week, but it's like a cliffhanger in the current timeline of the book, and then you jump to a different time, so you have to like wait to see what happens. And then also kind of he's exploring what it means to be a villain in the public opinion and eye versus like what's really going on behind the scenes and like what it means to be like an imperfect, nuanced person. Almost kind of talking about like cancel culture, like what does it mean to be canceled, or like how do we give people grace to just experiment and be like, you know, unlikable but still redeemable. So yeah, just highly, highly recommend.
I've never heard of that, and it sounds so good. Like, immediately added to the TBR. Similarly, I think all three of us have read this, The Compound by Aisling Rawle. While I think we lost it a little bit, the idea in the first like 40 to 50% of that book is so good. They originally pitched it as Love Island meets Lord of the Flies. I think we messed up with the Lord of the Flies comparison. I think that we could have done a Black Mirror comparison. I think that definitely represents where the story goes a little bit more. But it's a very short book. I think that she could have made it longer. But a really powerful debut idea for sure that kind of goes hand in hand with reality TV. And what does it say about society that there are people that would watch Love Island meets Lord of the Flies or read Love Island meets Lord of the Flies? I'm excited to see what other ideas that she would bring out to the table.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that book up. I wasn't crazy about it, but I did enjoy it. I think the synopsis kind of did it a disservice because, yeah, I do think the first half of the book was very strong. Where she lost me a little bit was with the challenges that the contestants have to do because it's supposed to be like difficult or controversial things that they get rewards for. I was like, okay, this is where it could be Black Mirror. It could be like really pushing the envelope, like really dark things that us as readers would really question, like, am I willing to do this? But it was never really anything that was super like high stakes. The main character isn't inherently likable, which I liked, but she never really seemed to grow that much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I wish they had explored more about kind of the background of the show or the context, because there was this like dystopian.
Yeah, they talk a lot about like the outside world and like what was going on, and talks about it enough that you're like, oh, this matters here, and it just actually doesn't.
Yeah, we never really get anything about like what's going on out there. Like we know that there's something happening, but we don't get details. I wanted to know what was going on. I also found the main character unlikable, but I usually do like an unlikable character. I actually liked that she didn't have any growth. I didn't want her to grow or get better. I actually wanted her to get worse.
Fair.
I'm like, I want.
We needed to go somewhere.
Yeah, we needed to keep a pole.
Too middle of the road, and I think that that's what made the resolution of it fall flat for me personally. Is we didn't go either way. It just stopped.
Yeah, true. And I guess like you being on a reality TV show isn't really going to change your character for the better. Like it's not probably going to make you grow in a positive way. So then show us her like being evil or something.
Yeah, like give me that full decline. Another one that has likable characters, I think, but has also unlikable characters, and then just generally flawed characters, which I know that you read, Olivia. This is Addie E. Kitchen's Dominion. And I really enjoyed it. And I read it because you raved about it. And I was like, hold on. I have nothing on the roster right now. Let's try this out. And I was so surprised that this was a debut. Like, the writing is phenomenal. Addie's doing so much work there with characters and their relationships, which I like to see. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that book up. Loved it. One of my favorite books of last year. I literally recommend this book to everyone. I think like the topic can be a little polarizing for people. It's about a woman who's like the first lady of a Baptist church in a very small insular town, southern town. Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows each other's business. Gossip is like the major social capital. But from her perspective, like her relationship and opinion with her husband, who's very like domineering, patriarchal, sexist, and then her teenage son. But one thing I loved most about this book was kind of like the way that she experimented with the structure. So she would include like the sermons. It was almost like a worksheet or like a document kind of.
Yeah, like a journal type of thing that you
Yeah, that's like a diary. So I really liked that. It was kind of like inviting you to look into the characters' like mind without reading directly what they're thinking. Also just like hot goss, like some crazy drama in that book, and it was really satisfying. Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah, every character had something going on, and it was all connected because, like you said, they're living in this small town, and so everybody knows everybody's business, and I personally love that. Give me a little Desperate Housewives situation. I love that. I love the gossip. So that one was a really good one, and I'm glad that I read it. So thank you for that recommendation.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, you've convinced me. So
I think I read it in like one sitting. I couldn't put it down. I think too, yeah, for her first novel, this is really strong. Great pacing, really interesting character development, good plot. The main character is like someone you, I think, root for, but you still see her flaws and really relate to on a human level, even if you're not religious or like have children, as a woman and as like someone who is just a continually like hurt person too, I think.
And there's also a younger female character that I thought was really interesting, and I enjoyed her character. We see her a lot like trying to find her place in the society and being in this relationship with this guy because she thinks that this is like the best thing to do because he is the pastor's son. And
Yeah, pastor. What his name's Wonder Boy, right?
Wonder
Like
Boy.
literally Wonder
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So, and like you really find out a lot about these people. And so I thought that her storyline was really interesting as well. So Tessa and our listeners,
I'm on it.
this is bam, stamp of approval from me and Olivia.
Yeah, so check out Dominion.
One that I just recently read, and it is her debut into full-length fiction, but she has published some short stories, I think. And it's The Book of Love by Kelly Link. This book is very hard to pitch, to explain, but I will try my best. There's a cast of 3 characters who are dead, ? Missing ? Hard to say. But they are 3, they know each other, they're connected, but they are not who, if you were to go through a death experience with, it doesn't really make sense and they don't remember anything. And then their band teacher just suddenly like brings them back to life and is like, hey, go finish your business. And at the end of it, 2 of you can stay, 2 of you can die again, basically. I know that makes 4 and I said 3. There's one like outlier going on there. And you follow every single possible point of view that you could follow in this book. You see every single person's feelings, and you start to see where the illusion of it all kind of breaks down because they've been dead, missing, no one knows what happened to them, but this band teacher that is actually some sort of entity in this world tells everyone, makes everyone believe this illusion that they've just been in Ireland studying abroad for this year. And so you get a lot of very interesting character dynamics because there's remnants. Like our main female character, her sister, she knows intrinsically that something is very wrong and that she's been desperately missing her sister in a way that doesn't quite make sense with if she was just in Ireland. And you just kind of see how loss can take so many different forms. And it's a really long book. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of crazy to me that she's only ever done short fiction with how long it is and how intricate it is. But it's also separated by so many points of view that to me it almost felt like a bunch of collected short stories around the same topic. So I guess I kind of get it. I would really recommend it, but also know it is so character driven and it's really not about the plot.
Wow, I'm walking away with 2 recommendations. The Book of Luke and the Book of Love.
It's the year books, folks. I'm between 2, but I think the newer book I'll recommend. I've also recently read Gone Girl again, and I'm very into like problematic, unreliable narrator fiction, which I also think resonates with other people. This is in that similar vein. Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cascino. She previously was a journalist for the Washington Post, and this is her first novel. It's about a woman who lives with her husband in Washington, D.C. She's like obsessed with the idea of having a house in a very cutthroat market. So every time they see a house, they had like 10 offers, but no acceptance. And she's like convinced that having this picture perfect life with a house and a baby will like save her marriage. She sees this house and when you see like an apartment or something and it's built up in your mind, it's like your place and you see yourself living there and you get super attached. So she gets attached to this one house. She finds out who the couple that lives there that owns it and like shows up at one of the husband's like yoga classes to pretend to like meet him so she can like basically insert herself into his life. And then, not too many spoilers, kind of like her low-key stalking them to try to get this house and like coerce them into giving her the house by digging up dirt on them. Wild ride, really entertaining and fun, and made me just think a lot about like Gone Girl, or like things where characters create like these extensive like plots or like lying so deeply that they convince themselves it's the truth. And really like well written. The characters are a little bit two-dimensional, but it's more plot driven, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to be ready for that with a thriller because you are reading it for the twists and the turns. And also, that story and that synopsis leads me to believe that regardless, that character would have been pretty flat.
Yeah, flat, not overly sympathetic or likable.
So my next one is Sweet Nothing's Confession of a Candy Lover by Sarah Perry. And I loved this. It's so good. It's a collection of sort of short stories, sort of just like paragraphs or blurbs. Sometimes we get snippets and we get stories. Other times we just get like descriptions of Perry's thoughts on certain candy. But I think that the structure was so fun. She goes by like different colors of candies and then like breaks it down to like every single candy. So Twizzlers, Red Vines, like those are 2 different things to her. And then we have like chocolates, and I think she might have desserts in there as well. But I thought it was very fun. It is one that I would definitely read again because parts of it are not sticking with me, but other parts like do. So the ones that are her sharing a candy and attaching that to a memory, those were like pretty vivid in my mind. But other ones where she's just like throwing out her opinions, I think it's just a fun read, especially on audio because it's just someone talking about candy and it's really good.
Cute. Who doesn't want that? Are you a candy lover? What's your favorite candy?
Oh, candy's hard. I like chocolate, I think, more than candy, which is also, she mentions chocolate. I really like a Kit Kat. Yeah. Right now, my favorite is a Kit Kat. That could change in like 20 minutes.
Kit Kat and Reese's, gang, rise up.
I'm a sour candy girl, so I'll be the outlier on that one.
You're still welcome to be part of the club. It's fine.
Thank you.
So my next book, I'm going to go for bat for her because controversial, not highly rated, but I loved this book so much. It came out in 2021. It's called A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. Have you guys heard of this?
This is on my TBR.
Okay.
So I'm excited.
It's also on mine.
Okay, let me convince you. I also think this is similar to what we were saying earlier. You either love this book or you like despise it. And I think it depends on your relationship with social media. So the premise of the book is this couple, they are like, have a very weird parasocial relationship with their ex-coworker who they like are obsessed with. They like kind of stalk her on social media. They're always talking about what she's doing, even though like they don't really like her, but they're always like following her content when she like posts updates. They're like, LOL, did you see what Jen posted? So even though they like say they don't like her, they're still like following her every move. And then they run into her in real life and they're invited on a vacation to go with her friends to like a vacation house. And without saying spoilers, things kind of like devolve from there once the main couple is kind of like seeing her as a real person, comparing their own life to what they see on social media, like kind of thinking about what does it mean to be happy or find like authentic community and relationships. It's a little bit not magical realism, but at the end there are horror elements that you might not expect from the premise, which I loved because it felt very like satirical. It felt like a Black Mirror episode and that it totally did something unexpected with a very realistic, like real premise. So I understand the kind of horror elements near the end probably didn't vibe with everyone, but I love it. I thought it was crazy and like so fun.
I love it. That's all I needed to like push this up on my TBR. So thank you. I also love to read, watch, discover something for myself if it's like got that really polarizing the two opinions of like this is horrible and this is amazing.
Going on with our influencer and social media topic here, I read an early copy and I think it got released in January, so you should be okay. And it's Hollow by Selena Myers. This book was very unexpectedly good for me. As I said, I'm a self-proclaimed iPad baby. I also love to watch silly little paranormal investigators on YouTube. It's really fun for me. I have like such a parasocial relationship to Sam and Colby who do that, and they are friends with Selena, and this is very much Twilight-esque. It follows a girl who gets turned into a vampire. It's all very spooky, scary skeletons, but it also has like a very intense cult element to it. And while I will say that I wanted a little bit more, I was very impressed by her skill in writing, not having a writing background whatsoever. So I would say try it. The cover is also sick, and so are the sprayed edges.
Love a sprayed edge. I also love ghost hunting shows, like very unironically.
Ghost Adventures fans rise up.
Yes.
I love that show.
There's like more nonfiction books coming out about ghost hunting, which I'm interested in, but would love to see more fiction too.
I am not too into
Ghost hunting?
ghost hunting and the occult.
So do you believe in ghosts or no?
Me? I do.
I'm a skeptic. So
I want to go ghost hunting so bad.
You can do that all on your lonesome.
I'll go with you. Let's do it.
Thank you.
Mm-mm. I am also a skeptic, and I think that's why like I'm not too into it. I don't have much to say on it.
Fair. Would you read that book that Tessa recommended?
It has nothing to do with ghosts. It's vampires.
Yeah, sure
Yeah.
then. Why not?
Yeah, she's fun.
I'm open-minded. I'll read a ghost story. Like I'll read a book that has ghosts in it, but I don't think I could do like a nonfiction ghost hunter, like them telling me their experience, because I just am such a skeptic where that I'm like, okay, this is not for me. But I hope I can still be a part of the club.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can still watch Sam and Colby videos and giggle.
Thank you.
And you should.
Yeah.
Thanks. To prove that I do, in fact, read ghost horror fiction, my next debut is Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kaylee Lee Baker. And I was really skeptical about this going in, not because of the ghost element, but because it takes place during COVID times. But I'm glad that I read it. I thought that it was a pretty good debut. I think it's a really interesting premise. So our main character, she cleans houses with a group of people, and her sister had like passed away. And so she's kind of seeing the ghost of her sister, and she's chasing this ghost in different places. And so these really creepy things start happening to her that she's like, is this my sister? Is this not my sister? What's happening here? Trying to get to the bottom of things. And I don't want to give too much away of like what ends up happening, but it's interesting to see our main character struggle with her own internal issue of, is my sister haunting me? Who is this ghost that is here? While also zooming out and seeing that the whole world is kind of going through something. And then she's also the victim of some pretty heinous acts.
So my final rec, I have to include a historical fiction book. Live up to my name. This author now has like several other books in what is now a trilogy of historical mystery. Bridget Walsh, she wrote The Tumbling Girl, which is like the first book in the series. It's about this woman who ends up being a detective in Victorian London, which is already like unusual, and I love reading about the Victorian age. It's like my personal like fascination, but also a big time of like social change. So this novel talks a lot about that. The main character partners with like an actual detective, and their relationship is very interesting. The premise is there is a fire in like a theater, and people are trapped and like they die in the fire, so they're trying to figure out like who like was responsible for that. And it takes them through kind of like the classic Victorian like seedy underworld cast of characters. But just I'm kind of a mystery skeptic. I don't read a lot of mystery, but this book was very engaging, and it did keep you kind of guessing. And for me, my favorite period in history. So I would recommend the whole trilogy, but this is the first book, The Tumbling Girl.
Going off of the historical fiction genre, a debut that I just recently found and I'm very intrigued by it is The Beheading Game by Rebecca Lehman. And it is about Anne Boleyn, but what if she woke up the day after her execution and took it upon herself to seek justice? Have you heard of it?
I saw that. It's like one of my most anticipated books of this year.
Yeah,
Cannot
I
wait.
was like, this is good. I know that it's gonna be good. So we'll try her. I'm trying to be a historical fiction girly.
That's something I can get behind. I mean, the book and you being a historical fiction girly. So one that I'm looking forward to is set to release in June, and this is Games, a Love Story by Anna Maria Volkova. And this is blurbed by Allie Hazelwood, who is one of my all-time favorite authors. It's giving like a darker romance. If you can pull up the cover, I think that kind of lends to maybe some of the themes or the direction that this book is going in. And I'm excited. I think that this is going to be so fun. Maybe not fun. Fun was probably not the right word. But I think it's going to be a really interesting and intriguing read. And I think it's going to challenge the way that I look at romance books moving forward.
Like many people, I'm dipping my toes in romance via Heated Rivalry. So I think that's a romance that you just said I could get behind. Okay, something I am looking forward to, also historical fiction, gothic horror, queer coming of age. Spoiled Milk by Avery Curran. It's about girls who are at an all-girls boarding school. One of the students and the friend of one of the main characters dies, so it's kind of about like the mystery behind her death, and ghosts start speaking to the main character, so there's like the spiritual elements of the story as well. Gothic novels literature is having its moment, I think. So I'm excited for this, especially with the queer coming of age element.
We genuinely couldn't have planned this better. The segue I'm about to have is crazy. But my next one that I'm excited about is Hemlock by Melissa Felivino. And its little blurb, if you will, is a woman haunted by a dark inheritance returns to the woods where her mother vanished in this queer gothic novel, A Butch Black Swan. Sign me up.
Say less.
Truly sign me up. It really feels like we planned that moment.
Yeah,
like not you saying queer gothic and it being mine too.
Hemlock is also one of my most anticipated books for this year.
Wow, we were really late.
The next one I have is Every Version of You by Natalie Messier, and it's a second chance magical realism, like time travel-esque vibe romance. And I'm excited because this was blurbed by Yolin Kwan, who is adapting Emily Henry films and also wrote How to End a Love Story. So I'm really intrigued by that because I thought that she was doing some really interesting stuff with her book and pairing grief and love together. And so I think that Every Version of You is not focusing on grief so much, but is focusing on kind of coming of age and finding yourself while also falling in love, which I think is really nice to have a debut author explore.
My next anticipated book, another horror fiction called Odessa by Gabrielle Scher. It's about a Jewish family in Russia who try to use ancient magic to bring back their daughter from the dead. It's kind of like a Pet Sematary moment, and kind of the fallout from that when she comes back to life, but as a different person than they know. I just think that sounds really interesting, and also using kind of ancient magic that is realistic to Jewish beliefs, and a debut author. So interesting, experimental, and excited to see what that is about.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one, but I love a reanimation of someone. I feel like there's so many different things you can do with it. This is interesting to me. It's marketed as a horror romance. It's horror and romance in one word. It's not easy to say. But it's called Sour Rot by Lily A. Grace. And it is pitched as Jane Eyre meets American Horror Story. A complex young woman falls in love with a mysterious funeral director, but I think that he's like maybe not good. And by maybe not good, I mean there's like a really long list of trigger warnings actually at the end of the description of the book, but I've never let that stop me before, so we'll see.
So this next one is pitched as combining Sailor Moon, Sex and the City, and House of Leaves. Yeah, there's a lot there. This is Plastic Prism Void by Violet Allen, and it's an enemies to lovers romantasy vibe, but I think it's more sci-fi than fantasy, it seems to me, and it follows a long-distance relationship between a man from one universe and then a trans girl who's also an intergalactic moth goddess. So there's a lot at play here. But I'm sad. I think that this is going to be fun, and I'm ready for it. I don't do a lot of science fiction-esque romance. I don't know if there's a lot out there. If there is, the email to hit us up at. And so this is interesting to me, and I'm ready for it. Maybe I'm not ready for it, but I will be when it comes out.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, intergalactic moth goddess is all you had to say.
I had you at intergalactic moth goddess.
Yeah.
Love that.
This book is currently sitting on the hold shelf for me, so I'm very excited. It's called Escape by Stephen Fishbach. We're back on the reality TV train.
Yes.
I think this is getting a lot of attention. The byline, everyone gets the story arc they deserve. But it's about kind of a faded reality show winner who's now a producer, disgraced producer, who wants to get his way back into people's good graces, back into fame. So he's invited to a jungle survival show, aka Survivor. And it seems to be more than he bargained for, / similar to what we were talking about with the compound, like challenges and things like that are like pushing the boundaries. So yeah, I just honestly can't get enough of these type of books, so I'm excited.
Yeah, the cover of that also really good.
Very good.
Also, I saw it. It's thick.
Yeah,
It's
so
a chunk.
I'm set.
My last one, I went kind of rogue with my historical situation, so I'll go back to my roots here. And it is Heir of Illusion by Madeline Taylor. It's a debut fantasy romance. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really look at what it's about. I just felt the vibe. The cover was good. And I could be so wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think this might have been indie published originally. So I have high hopes, but we'll see.
Sometimes all it takes is the vibe of the cover.
Yeah, that was a really vibe-based one.
Yeah, a lot of times they get me with the covers. I am a victim of a good cover. My last one is a collection of short stories. This is The Good Eye by Jess Gibson, who is Margaret Atwood's daughter, but I don't know. I don't want that to define her, but I thought that it'd be interesting if people knew that.
I mean, if your mom is Margaret Atwood, like,
Yeah.
I would be saying that every day.
Exactly. And I'm excited for it because, one, it's short stories and I like short stories. And two, I don't think she's had a collection of her short stories published like this before. She's like been featured in a couple of anthologies previously, but it follows a lot of like art is what I'm understanding, because she has a PhD in art history. And so I love that. That is for me. So I'm excited to see how she incorporates that, like her background, in these short stories and in her writing. Before we let you go, Olivia, do you have any other recommendations, debuts you're looking forward to, or thoughts that you would like to share?
Yeah, final thank you for having me. This felt like really fun, and I feel very official being on a podcast, like a real podcast. Yeah, my recommendation is check out the programs at your library. Most of them are free. You don't have to be a patron even. And that painting class or craft you've always wanted to try, you can probably try for free at your library. So yeah, we're always here for your programming needs, and I'm always gonna plug that.
Do you have any programs that you recommend patrons check out for March and April?
So for March, we have a lot of fun pre-spring things coming up. We have a Ramadan celebration for all ages and families. That will be on Thursday, March 5th from 5:30 to 6:30 with crafts and snacks. We also have a program by a educator, how to talk to your kids about AI. I think that's something that people really struggle with, library staff included, since it's a fast-changing topic. That will be on Tuesday, March 17th from 6:30 to 7:30. And then candle making is back on Wednesday, the 18th from 6:30 to 8, but this time with wine. So Wiccan wine.
Whoa!
Those are my recommendations for March.
And like I said at the beginning, you kill it every time. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a really fun conversation. I feel like we got to talk about a lot of things that we haven't brought up recently on the podcast. You had a lot of good recommendations.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you. You make for great conversation, which we know because we get to hang out with you in the back often and have conversations similar to this. But now our patrons know too. And so if you catch Olivia in the library, be sure to talk to her about some historical fiction, some influencer and social media nonfiction, and her programs.
Yeah, thank you. It's so fun to work with you guys. So it was fun to do this more professional capacity and talk about books. And yeah, support indie publishers, self-publishing, and debut authors.
After a wonderful conversation with Olivia, this month we both read Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy, which is on theme with our topic for this episode, debuts. This is McCurdy's debut in fiction, and we have some thoughts here. I can start us off. So we both did this on audio, which I think is the way to go with this, maybe, because Jeanette reads it. And so I think that I like when an author reads their book because they kind of know the tone and the voice that they were writing it in for each of these characters. So I think that that was interesting. Initially I gave this 4 stars, but I've recently bumped it down to 3 after sitting with it for a while and kind of processing the thoughts that I have around it and some areas that I struggle to connect with. But for those of you that don't know, it is about a 17-year-old named Waldo that is living in Alaska that is very in tune with, social media and purchasing these beauty products and clothing and just being a consumer at large. And she ends up engaging in a relationship with her teacher that kind of takes a little tailspin and evolves from there. And of course, I did find that icky. The part that I really liked was that exploration of consuming and the purchasing and the dopamine hit of a new beauty product or a new outfit, similar to the dopamine hit that she later gets from messaging her teacher.
I don't know if I have an official rating. I have a lot of complex thoughts around it. I think it's like a 2 or 2.5, somewhere in there. I think that she shows a lot of promise in fiction writing. I don't think that this was the best she could have done. I totally agree with you, the consumerism side. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more if she went just like grimy girl fiction, obsessed with purchasing and those parts were the only parts that I felt like Waldo was a real character to me. And every part with Corgi, whatever. Also, Corgi, he's a dog. In my head, I'm seeing a dog. Sorry. All of those parts, I felt like were there as a shock value, pitch, concept. I don't know. I think there was a lot missing for me personally. And maybe this is my own fault. I expected a little bit more. But this doesn't deter me from reading anything from her in the future. Like, I will continue until she proves to me that she isn't getting better.
I think for me, there are 2 things at play in terms of her writing. She's coming off of writing a very personal, a memoir about her traumatic experiences as a child star and her relationship with her mother. And then shifting into this that's still heavily focuses on a teenager and that teenager's relationship with other people around her and the traumatic experience that the trauma that she's dealing with, growing up with, the relationship she has with her mom and not having her dad around. And so I would like to see what she has in store next. And I don't want to say I'm not going to read it because I probably will, but I would be more inclined to read it if she moves away from this teenage girl perspective and into a more adult perspective.
Fully agree. I knew the general concept going into this, that it was a teacher-student situation. In my opinion, if you are looking to read something like this, read My Dark Vanessa. It's done with a lot more nuance. But I knew that general basis. But I think I was kind of expecting how in My Dark Vanessa you have later timeline of your main character in like adulthood reflecting on it. And I think I was really hoping for that. And instead I just stayed in her 17-year-old brain. And I very much agree. The tone is very similar to the tone that she has writing about her teenage years.
Yeah, so I think that we're in agreement here, which happens often. Happens often, but that's why we're co-hosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our next book talk pick is Tradwife by Saratoga Schaefer, and I'm really excited for this. I love a horror book that focuses on motherhood. I think it's so intriguing just because that's naturally such a scary thing in my mind. And so adding a horrific twist to it, just chef's kiss.
Yeah, I've read, I think, like 10% of it already. It's going to be fun.
As usual, if you have any recommendations for us to check out or read or discuss, you can send it over to our email, ghpl@greenhillslibrary.org.
Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 18, First Time Caller. I'm Tessa.
I'm Sarah, and we're checked out.